Hello, people, and welcome back to the Outerbound podcast. We are back after not doing an episode last week because it was international break and nobody cares about that. So I am now back with Sam and Abbas. How we doing?
You're good, bro. You're good. How are you?
I'm chilling. United and Chelsea disgraced themselves over the weekend again. So
Hi.
talk about Premier League.
I don't even follow the Lakers. I'm a Phoenix Suns guy now. But yeah, we moved.
Yeah. I'm only wearing this because I've got nothing else to wear. My Man City top is in the post. So
I told you, join the club, join the team. You're ready, man. We're taking applicants on a regular basis, so just join, man. It's calm, man.
Do you know how mad that is? That your fan base is that dead that you're taking applicants?
No, it's not dead, bro. Do you know what it is? It's not even that it's dead yet. It's because we know the Chelsea fans and the United fans are in the gutter right now. So they need something that's gonna, make them rise. Like the Suns top your way, like them Phoenix Suns, like rise like a phoenix. So come to City, you're gonna enjoy it, man. Like you see, we're gonna talk about it, but you saw how we took down bloody West Ham. Doku, a proper winger, like Pep said, we got a proper winger back. So I'm ready. I'm here for all the smoke.
Yeah, I don't really know if I would enjoy being a City fan because I said the football was kind of boring, but they get results at the end of the day. Unlike Chelsea, who's got 35 points in the last 35 or some BS like that, I don't even know. But as I said, I thought I've spoken enough about how disappointing Chelsea United are, and even better, this week we've got the return of the Champions League. So just before we dissect into the different teams and who favourites that we can expect from all these different teams, how you guys feel about the Champions League this year?
You guys shouldn't even be talking because you guys are not even in it. So, boy,
Go on, Sam. You go first.
I'm very confident because I think the elite teams at the moment, I don't think they're on City's level. Like you take away like the Premier League teams, when you face a Premier League team in the Champions League, anything can happen because it just comes a game of anarchy where it's just end to end. But if you look at the top European teams, like Real Madrid, there's no fear there. Obviously, I think Barcelona are building a team, but they're still in that transition period where I think if we have our best team, we're able to beat them. Bayern Munich, I don't know what's going on there. Thomas Tuchel, he has to be careful because Bayern don't play. He might be losing another big job soon. Who else is there? Inter Milan, AC Milan, not fearing them, even though Inter smoked AC on the weekend 5-1. But I just don't see a threat. If we can be consistent and we've got a big enough squad to rotate, I think the additional signings that we made this season, Nunes, Kovacic, Doku, and Vardio, I think it's put us in good stead to kind of actually repeat. I think we're in a position where we could do a Real Madrid. I don't want to speak like I'm speaking ahead of myself, but I just think a lot of the big teams are in transition at the moment where we have a lot of consistency and structure to kind of just dominate in Europe. So I think we are the favourites that everyone's saying, but I think we should be the favourites anyway. So I'm always going to say City's going to win. So that's my choice anyway.
I think I'm kind of with Sam. Like, do you know when you say like, am I excited for the Champions League? I'm kind of not. And do you know what it is? Obviously, one is my own team's not playing. But two, the fact that you look at someone like Arsenal, for example, and they're one of the favourites, you could say, for it, just by betting wise, like in the top 5, just kind of shows where the Champions League is right now. Some people, like you'll see Barcelona, for example, they drop out, they go play Europa League. Somehow, some way, the knockout stages of the Europa League tend to be more stronger than the Champions League. I don't know how that works, but then you look at it, you're like, oh, okay, cool. But I'm kind of with Sam. Like City right now, outside of their own complacency, seem to be that team that you probably struggle to beat over 2 legs. I think that's probably when it's in a final. If they play the Real Madrid or Bayern Munich, is a bit more, I guess you could say, even match. Anybody can potentially, but I think over 2 legs, being able to get a result at the Etihad is probably the hardest thing in football right now. I think it is. I'd say that's probably the hardest thing in football now is to go to the Etihad and win.
I mean, so obviously I heard the thing about how City should be clear favourites, but I think for me, coming into the scene, especially knowing how the transfer window has gone, and not that I watched them a lot, so I'm basically going off. I think I watched them like twice and going off the games that I've seen and the signings they made. I believe Bayern should be the favourites because I think when you look at the talent across the pitch, I mean, especially in Bayern's attack, you still got Harry Kane, you still got Kingsley Coleman, you still got Leroy Sané. I mean, Kimmich is still a very good midfielder. Goretzka is still a very good midfielder, and they've also made signings in defense as well. They've signed what's his name, Kim as well. Yeah, they signed Kim as well. Obviously, Upamecano, he's a bit shaky at times, but I think obviously winning the Champions League, I think is something that's just more based on who has the best team. And as I said, we've only seen it once in football that only one team has actually repeated the Champions League. Now, if City did win the Champions League last season, I would have come in to say that I think City would be favourites, but I feel like given City won it last season, so it's very hard to repeat. And then given the talent that Bayern now have in attack, especially the sign of Harry Kane, I think because last season they didn't have a striker, and you can see how that followed the misery trying to put money in attack. And even towards the end, they stopped playing money altogether. So I think for me, anyways, Bayern should at least be favourites or joint favourites with Man City. I think
put Bayern as my I put Bayern as my second favourite, but just to what Sam's point said, how long are they going to be able to be together as a team? Because if Tuchel gets sacked and they bring someone else in, because there's nothing about Thomas Tuchel right now at Bayern Munich that looks convincing. Just like how the German
100%.
national team is right now. The German national team is, 8 months, 9 months off of Euros, and it's the least convincing Germany team that we've seen in our footballing thing. Right now at Bayern Munich, Thomas Tuchel's not convincing. Yeah, he might be winning. Yeah, they might be top of the Bundesliga, but nothing about it screams confidence. If you look at the way they won it last year, it took Jamal Musiala in the 89th minute to score that goal. Otherwise, Thomas Tuchel's getting sacked before the season begins, and they had just brought him in. Nothing about Thomas Tuchel screams confidence at Bayern Munich like it did at Chelsea for the period that he was at. But yeah, I'm all right with them being second favourite. The sneaky team for the first time, for me, looks like PSG, because I think with PSG, because they're now building that French core, you could say, or whatever. It's like, okay, Mbappe is our number one. The rest we work around him. I still believe in that group. I know people have said it's a group of death with Milan, Dortmund, and stuff. They'll win basically 5 out of 6 of them. Play 6 games, right? Yeah, 5 out of 6 of them games. Personally, I think they can do that. They'll build in. The only thing is for them is how do they perform over 2 legs. And once Mbappe, if he's ever injured, that team's gone as a mess up. But because I remember that PSG team with Cavani, Ibra, Lavezzi, all them guys, that was a threat. When you looked at that team, you were like, okay, this team can make a semi-final. This team can cause you damage. Is this reiteration of PSG similar to that? I'm not saying it directly is, but it's not one with 3 superstars and some players around it.
Don't you think that makes it difficult, though, for...
I mean, really and truly, I think I kind of get what Abbas is saying, because one of the criticisms that people have been giving PSG over the past years is how they only go for star players. They don't buy players that match the profile of the managers, how they splash a lot of cash. I mean, because obviously you look at what they've done with, because Neymar isn't the only player. I mean, you mentioned Neymar, Ibra, Cavani, Messi, and all these kind of players, Moretti, and these are all world-class players, but there's a reason that they were never able to. I think it's 2 reasons. One is they changed their managers a lot, so there was never any time to build that cohesion. And 2, I also feel like, even though you can argue that for Bayern, I think Bayern's a bit different, but their competitiveness within the league, they don't have enough big matches to get up for. So I feel like it's a thing whereas in... Oh, Sam's frozen. But yeah, okay, so now you're fine now. I feel like it's a thing whereas because they don't play enough big games, they don't have the time to test themselves for actual European big games, if you get what I mean. So I feel like some of the signs that they made this season, I think an undercover one, Asensio, might be a decent one, because Asensio is someone that has won the Champions League with Madrid numerous times, so he knows what he's doing. They've gone to get Ousmane Dembele. He's not a Champions League.
I think Kolo Muani is a solid player that they managed to pick up, even though you take out that missed chance, I think, because he's
Lord.
Because the thing is with PSG is because they're building basically a core French team, a Parisian team, whatever you want to say, a team that doesn't involve someone from Italy or Brazil or Argentina or whatever you want to say, as the main players or the players that gravitate towards the stars, you could say, I think it should work out a lot better. But in this case, like we said, Man City are the favourites. Man City are the favourites because they're the best squad in the Champions League. They have the overriding best manager in world football right now. And then I'll be honest with you, the thing that probably gets you, that isn't looked at as much until they actually start playing in the Champions League, and then when they start winning, and pundits will speak about it more in the knockout stages, if they play a Bayern Munich, a Real Madrid, Barcelona, is their record in Europe is ridiculously good. Like, it is to the point where, like I said, if you get a draw, you get back on your plane to wherever country you're heading to, and you're celebrating that as a victory because it's so hard to win at the Etihad. So that's why I look at Man City and I think, yeah, you're the favourites. And I think the final's also in London. So, like, it's in England. These guys turn up to Wembley for fun nowadays. Like, they don't even, it's their second home. Like, we used to call it our second home, and now it's this.
All right, so then just keeping it within England, because as you mentioned before, you said earlier, according to the betting favourites, that Arsenal are a team they're seen as top 5. This is their first appearance since 2017, I believe. I remember I was in uni when Arsenal last played in the Champions League.
Do you know what's funny? I thought it was longer than that. I thought they hadn't been in longer than that,
Nah, because I remember I was in the first year of uni when Arsenal last played in the Champions League. Just for context, I graduated like 4 years ago, so that's to let you know that how
I graduated longer, so it's all good, man.
Yeah. I was what's it called? I was the first year of uni, and now I graduated 4 years ago, and they still haven't played the Champions League. But they are back since the Wenger era. What do you expect from them this year? Because I've heard a lot of Arsenal fans talk about it. Some of them say they feel like they're good enough to win the whole thing. Some of them say that round of 16 will be a good thing. Some of them say they just want Arsenal to just be competitive. So, what is kind of the benchmark for what Arsenal should be doing this season?
So the first thing is it goes through. If you look at the group, they should top the group. Like, first thing, you should 100% top that group. Second is then it goes to the look of the draw. Like, who do you end up playing because you top the group, and then you can go from there. I think if you top the group, and you should at least aim, personally for me, to win one knockout tie. And then you see where everything sits. Because once you win one knockout tie, you need to win. Sounds dumb. You need to win 2 more. And then you're in the final. I believe. Is it? Am I right? The 16 quarterfinals.
Yeah, 16 round 8s, then semis.
Yeah. So you just need, if you can win that one tie and then everyone behind you is starting to fall off, then yeah, if you hear Arsenal fans saying, we can win this, and then if you look at the potential of the draw, because they normally tend to draw quarters and semi-finals together, I believe. If it looks favourable, then yes, the expectation changes. But for now, I definitely say that first and foremost, you need to top the group. Secondly, probably win one knockout round. I think basically, if you look at it, if you top the group, you're playing anyone who finishes second, unless somehow Real Madrid stink it up, PSG, Bayern Munich on a group with United, so they can't stink it up anyway. You see, and all them boys, if they really stink it up and finish second, then it could be a bit difficult. But the reality is, I look at Arsenal, and I'd say top of the group, at least one knockout round win. And then from there, yeah, if you want to talk about potentially being able to win it, if the draw goes in your favour, why not? I think that's when I look at when Chelsea used to be in there. I was like, if we make quarterfinals, we can definitely win this thing. But that's probably my expectation for Arsenal right now.
Yeah, so we're just basically talking about how, like, the last time Arsenal played in the Champions League, it was when I was in the first year of uni, and I graduated like 4 years ago. So
yeah,
that long. But we'll talk about what do you feel like the expectation for Arsenal should be for that.
Do you know what it is? I think for Arsenal right about now, it's just to enjoy being back in the Champions League. Because, to be honest, like, the way the Champions League is always a group of death where you go and finish top and then you go and get Bayern Munich in the last 16. So, like, at the moment, you just need to enjoy it. And we're going to see how Arteta can kind of juggle where you're playing League, Carabao Cup, Champions League and the rotations that you can make. So me personally, I know Arsenal fans that like they're on the same level as United fans. They're very outlandish. They're gonna think they have a chance to win it. Similar to like what Abbas said, once you get to the quarterfinals, you do have a chance. But then you have to bear in mind that once you get to the quarterfinals, you can face anyone. So it's always, I always say the Champions League, yes, the best team does usually win it, but it's always, you have to get the luck of a draw. Because if you get, there's certain times where you can have a draw and you're going to go like on a suicide row of you'll play Bayern, Man City, then you get to the final and you have to play Liverpool. Like if you win it in that way, then great. But then sometimes you're going to get that easy road where you might get a Sport in Lisbon, then you surprisingly get a Galatasaray in the quarterfinals, then you get like Napoli or one of the Italian teams and you're in the final. So it's just all about the luck of the draw. But to be honest, I think what Arsenal should just be thinking about now is just getting out of the group. Once you get out of the group, then you can start dreaming and thinking, cool, we've got an easy tie in the round of 16. Let's move on, win that game and then move on. Quarterfinals, oh, another easy round. Let's win that. So right about now, get out of the group stage and then take each game as it comes.
Do you know what it is? You know, like I said about enjoying it, I think the only team from England that can enjoy it is probably Newcastle. Because if you look at their group, first, like, don't get me wrong, I don't believe in this Newcastle Saudi project. Like, some people are silly where they think these men can splash out money. No, they can't, because financially they're restricted by it to start off with. But because they have overachieved and they're in the Champions League, and you have a group where basically you have PSG, Dortmund, Milan, go enjoy it. Now, don't get me wrong, don't stink it up and end up with 0 points, because then I'm going to look at you and say, what project is this? You still spent peas. You still spent money. Yeah. Make yourself an element of competitive. Make yourself element of competitiveness within the group. Leicester got to the quarterfinals. Don't get me wrong, their draw was very easy as well, yeah. But they got to the quarterfinals. Newcastle's probably the team right now. You look at it and they're like, yes, we can enjoy it, but you still have to showcase, okay, we're not just here to make up numbers. We can be competitive to a standpoint. But yeah, Newcastle is probably the only English team right now to look at and say, enjoy it. However,
when I say enjoy it, I mean like just enjoy it in terms of playing your football, enjoying the football you're playing, but also don't think too much about it, because when Arsenal start thinking too much about it, that's when the pressure's going to get to them. So like, just take each game as it comes. All you got to do in the Champions League is win your home games. If you win all your home games and get a draw away, you've got your 10 points. You got the magical number.
No, I mean,
do you know what I mean?
I feel a bit different, because I feel like it would be kind of like catastrophic if Arsenal reach at least the quarterfinals of the Champions League. I feel like that should be the minimum. I don't think they will go on and win it, and I don't think they should be heavily expected to go on and win it. But then, as you said, and as many have said, that when you look at the talent around Europe, I mean, it shows that the talent has fallen off, and Arsenal is seen as one of the best teams. And you signed Declan Rice for 100 million to bolster your midfield. You still got Saka, who's now, regardless, one of the best wingers in the world now. You've got your squad depth and all these kind of stuff. So if you get knocked out the round of 16s again, when you've got this kind of squad, it then looks back to this the same thing they were doing on the Wenger in the Champions League.
That's right to say though. That's the history of Arsenal though. Round of 16, that's their favourite round. Their thing is have fun, finish second, lose 10-2 on aggregate to Bayern Munich. That's their legacy. That's their legacy.
Like you said about they spent whatever money on Declan Rice, yeah? Just like I was said with Newcastle about enjoying it. Let's not remember they spent money on Tonali. Before that, they spent money on Harvey Barnes. Like they've spent money as well. They just look like the little darling of football right now, because why not? Like you're on Sky every day, but also people are. I've seen that thing about Sky. Yeah, you got to realize these lot are going to Milan and then coming back. There's a reason why they're on at 4:30 on a Sunday type of thing. But again,
it's stupid though.
It is, but I understand why they put them where they are at that time. Like,
because you got Tottenham against Arsenal at 2:00. You'd rather put that at 4.
Yeah, but that's a Northern derby, isn't it? So, like, I think Arsenal are at home on their first game as well. When it comes to
but what I'm trying to say, even regardless, normally you do it based on the bigger game. Who's watching at 4:30? Who's watching Newcastle against Sheffield United? That's a mad game to shout 4:30. It shouldn't be live, to be honest. It shouldn't even be live.
Yeah, it shouldn't be
live.
That's
the whole point.
That's a conversation, isn't it? But
nobody want to see that shit. And just lastly, before we move on to our next sport, obviously we still got the two Spanish giants that are still in the competition. But it seems this year that nobody is really a believer of them. Even though, as you said, Barcelona's made some signings to bolster the squad, and same with Real Madrid, keen in on the Bellingham signing as well. But why do you feel like nobody is really giving them a chance this year in the Champions League?
Do you know what it is?
Go on, you go some first.
Because do you know what it is? I think since Ronaldo and Messi left, most people haven't looked at the Spanish league as being that dominant league anymore. Yes, you've got some young emerging talent, Vinicius Junior, Gavi, Pedri, Rodrigo, etc. But it just seems like right about now, where the talent is all in the Premier League. So when you're looking at Barcelona and Real Madrid, you're thinking of past glory. And we've seen, like, my Spanish team is Barcelona, but we saw them last year. They made so many signings last year, then they got knocked out of the Champions League in the group with Bayern and Inter, where a lot of people thought, okay, cool, they would have finished second or first in that group. Then they went to the Europa League, faced Man United, who wasn't really great, and everyone said, oh, with this team that they've got and the signs they've made, would beat United, and it ended up losing. So I just think they're in that situation, they're in that position now where Xavi's been there for like 18 months, whatnot. He's still in a transition, and I just think he's still kind of figuring out the best way to get Barcelona to play good in the big games. Because, like, for example, you got Cancelo, which, yeah, he's good. I loved him at City, but he's a liability defensively when you're playing the bigger teams. So
he scored a banger over the weekend. He scored a banger over the weekend.
Yeah, against Betis, like, I respect it. But when you're playing against Vinicius, yeah, in the El Clasico, is he going to start, or are they going to shift Kondu to play right back and then play another centre back? So that's just my thing. I just think, again, both teams are going through a transition where they're very young, and now you're seeing City and the Premier League teams being the dominance with, they've got the more experienced players, the better players. The Premier League's got more money to spend, and they're actually investing in their team, where Real Madrid are strategizing and thinking, cool, how can we maneuver to get Mbappe? Are we going to get him? So I just think right about now, there's that fear of the Spanish teams are no longer there. And it's just because they're going through a transition. We see it change. Like in the 90s, it was Italian football. Then the Premier League came. Then Spanish football came. Then it's back to the Premier League. So it's just that transition period where right about now, La Liga isn't as scary as it used to be when you had the two-headed monsters of Ronaldo and Messi there.
I was going to say, do you know one of the main reasons is where's La Liga played? Where can you watch La Liga right now?
Exactly. That's enough. Yeah. Before you used to go on Sky. Remember, we used to speak about it. I said, we used to talk about it. You had Graham Hunter, you had Scott Minto, the dream team. Do you know what I mean?
That's the thing. So, like, before, back in the day, you was locked in Saturday afternoon, Sunday evenings, you were locked in, you were watching Revista on a Tuesday. Now you have to go on Amazon Prime and buy Viaplay to be able to watch it. And no one's doing that. Even though they say, yeah, we're watching La Liga, like, realistically, it's not as accessible. Well, it is accessible, but just no one's paying for it like that. We're not adding another subscription to it. So you've got that element where a lot of these teams probably aren't being watched. And then two, like Sam's point, the reason why La Liga was so watched was basically they had the two biggest stars in football. Don't get me wrong, Barcelona and Real Madrid are still the two biggest teams in football. But the two biggest stars...
I don't think Barcelona are top two.
No, they're still the top two.
I think they are. Like, when you watch El Clasico, everyone's going to stop and watch that regardless. Like, that's why Spain is so still big, because of El Clasico. But outside of that, no one's really locking in to watch Real play Osasuna or Betis.
If I'm a foreign player and I'm not come through any sort of academy, 99 out of 100 times, my dream is to play for Barcelona and Real Madrid, no matter how much they are in the bum. I am 100% doing that. Look at João Felix, for example. My guy was playing for Atletico Madrid, winning league titles. What's he saying? My dream moves Barcelona. Every single person outside of being British and playing in, coming through an academy will say Barcelona and Real Madrid. Right now, Real Madrid are still waiting for Mbappe. Barcelona will need their star to back that, which is going to, I'm not saying he's going to move there, but Erling Haaland and Mbappe are the two biggest stars in European football right now. And they both sit outside of the Premier League. I mean, they both sit outside of Real Madrid and Barcelona. They got Jude Bellingham, who's the new shiny toy boy at Real Madrid right now. Barcelona don't have that right now. They have this Spanish guys that they brought through that doesn't have that pizzazz about them like they used to back in the day. And although they're still pretty solid players, if you look at the way Spain play, let's say in a European competition, when they fall short, most of the players there are probably going to be playing for Barcelona, like Pedri and Gavi and stuff like that. So because they fall short there, people think Barcelona just fall short, and there's not that thing about them. However, saying all of that, I think you can never write off a Real Madrid team in Europe. Barcelona, I think they are a bit more frail. Like, you can bully Barcelona a bit more. Real Madrid are still Real Madrid in terms of just off name. I think that's the only thing.
But do you still believe that last season, after how City dominated them and made them look average?
But this is the thing. I put City over the pedestal. I always said City were a time bomb ticking to win the Champions League because they had a bit of unlucky. They had luck against them. Let's be honest. They had a lot of luck against them.
Because Pep was busting it. That's why.
No, not even that. I think if you look at the way they were knocked out in certain games, it was just like, yo.
Yeah, the Tottenham one, Monaco, there was quite a few. Even like Lyon, like
the Madrid comeback, like how did they score?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was.
No, but that Madrid was just destiny. The Madrid, when you saw the way they won, it was just.
That's destiny. What I mean. Whereas you look at Real Madrid and you still feel like, okay, cool. If they played Bayern Munich, it's not going to be as straightforward as Bayern Munich winning it, because somehow they'll turn up at the Bernabeu. They'll end up winning 2-0. Valverde will bag a goal. Rodrigo will bag a goal. You look at it and think, yo, how's this Bayern Munich team got 62% possession, had probably 14 shots, 5 on target, where Real Madrid have gone and won the game type of thing? Even though I'm not saying Bayern Munich would do that, because they really wouldn't. But my point is, Real Madrid still have that French thing of je ne sais quoi about them. Like, there's still that European alphas. Barca just are a bit frail. But don't get me wrong, they're still the top 2 teams in world of football. The league's just not there to be watched right now. That's the only thing why people probably aren't talking about them. Because really, Barcelona top of the league, won what did they win over the weekend, man?
They won 5-0.
Yeah, 5-0.
Like last season.
But I think it's a.
That's the one league last season. That's what I said.
Yeah, but I think people, in terms of Barca, they still like I said, Barca my team, but people still see Barca as there's some frailty there. Like they still haven't got over losing Neymar. They hadn't replaced him. They brought all these players in, and everyone they brought to replace Neymar didn't work. Malcolm, they brought in Griezmann, they brought in Dembele. It hasn't worked. So people still thinking, cool, I see what you're doing, but you've got a Lewandowski that's 35 up top. Like, you've got Gundogan 9 midfield. You've got Oriol. Like, it's not as frightening as the old Barca. Do you know what I mean?
I was going to say, if you look at Barcelona and the exits in Europe as well, the Roma one, Liverpool, handily getting by Bayern Munich, losing, like you said, going into the Europa League. Like I said, all of that adds up to where people just believe they are for it. And to be honest, they probably are. They win leagues, which is cool. That's like a stepping block. But Real Madrid are the European giants in Spain to be able to progress going forward.
Okay, I said it will be interesting to see how the Champions League shapes up and all that kind of stuff. As I said, everyone's saying Man City are clear favourites, which I don't blame them. But as I said, there's a reason why there's only one team that have gone back-to-back, which is why I can't comfortably say that they're favourites. But we're going to see.
You're just hating. You're just hating, man.
You know what's funny, yeah? I told someone 2 days ago I'm going to make a conscious decision to stop hating as going forward. So
you know, I said you're hating as well, because you said Bayern Munich, and they've been smelly. I watched them against Bayer Leverkusen on the weekend.
Yeah, but
they didn't move me. They didn't move me. Tuchel's there, like.
Yeah, but
he doesn't have to utilize Kimmich. Yeah, the team is smelly, and like, yeah, I still don't. I don't rate them in terms of what they can do. What's that?
The style of football Man City is playing doesn't move you.
It does. You don't watch their games. Though. People that say it's boring is because it's not their team. Like, I watch Man City every week when we play, and it's amazing football. So the same way people give credit to Brighton play like us and we play like them. So make up your mind. You can't say on one hand Brighton's great football, then the next minute Man City's boring because we win. Like, make it make sense. It's not. Everyone wants to play like that. Poch wants to play like that. It doesn't work though.
There's a difference. There's a difference between great football and entertaining football.
Man City's entertaining football, bro. Look at Miku. Look at Suchek on skates. What are you talking about?
When I think about box office, Erling Haaland for me is the most box office player outside of Mbappe when I can be asked watching the French league. I just want to see what this brother's going to do, what his left foot's going to say, where he's going to bang from. Is he going to score a scissor kick? Is he going to do a header? Is he just going to trumble it? How is Haaland
So
going?
Richard, what are you telling me is entertaining football? Ten Hag that says he wants to be the best team on transition. No, that means you're sitting back waiting for teams to attack you so you can counter. Like,
no, but
I'm trying to ask you.
Yeah, but first of all, I think Man City's played great football. I just don't think they're the most entertaining because it's very, very systematic and stuff. Like there isn't that flair and freedom of teams of the past that used to watch. When you talk about the Real Madrids of back of the days,
But that's not flip. But that's individualism though. That's just saying I've got the best players. Do what you want. That's not football though.
Well, that's what I was watching. I grew up. Oh, I didn't grow up, but
who did that though? Who did that? Because even the best Barcelona teams, the best teams, whether it's Messi or Ronaldinho, they had structure, but they had individualism. So
I didn't say the team should have structure. I said that they are very, very systematic. I
don't think it is though. It's certain players that system. People say that because these are the fanboys that say, "Oh, Pep beat out this with Grealish." Exactly. It's not Jack Grealish though, because the reason why he does that is because Pep don't trust Jack Grealish when he's got the ball. When Doku's got the ball, when Doku was playing, what did he tell Doku? One v one attack.
He's a good dribbler at fucking Aston Villa.
No, but the thing is, he holds the ball for too long though. Pep don't want you holding the ball. Either you're direct or you pass. But Jack Grealish will hold the ball. But we've seen it. Messi was there. You had Henry. You had what's it called? Pedro. You have to be direct. There's no point in me holding the ball. So now the defensive team can get back and have their structure. What am I going to do? So he does that to players that he knows he has to.
This is like a conversation for a different day because as I said, I'm not here to slander Man City for all the.
You can't. You got to focus on your team. That's pair side to side, side to side, side to side. And you got Jackson. You got what's his name? Jackson. What is his name? Nicholas Jackson moving like he's Michael Jackson, shimmying and all that. Even though I like him, but what's he doing? Allow it.
Anyways, we're gonna see. But as I said, that is the football section. No, we're gonna move on to Formula One. Smooth operator, he's back. And now, obviously, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, Carlos Sainz won the Singapore Grand Prix yesterday, in which was one of the most impressive performances that I've seen since I started watching Formula One. And it was kind of a race that had everything like hard racing, tactics, strategy, safety flags. And as I said, Red Bull were in the mud. Obviously, second?
And they still finished fifth, but carry on.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. We don't care. But also, look at the point we could have when Red Bull are non-factor. But obviously, you guys know what I think of the race. I'm going to ask you guys what you thought of the race overall before we dive into the different teams and drivers.
You know first, Abbas?
Yeah, the race itself, like you said, because of what happened in qualifying, and because it's a street circuit, it settles up for one of them races where, okay, cool, something can happen here. Even if this race was going to be similar to Monaco, where there's a lack of overtaking, because it's a street circuit, it's going to be a lot closer. And we're going to, if anything, one of the biggest storylines, even though you may or may not want to admit it, would probably be how far can Max get up the field? What can Max Verstappen do where he is right now? And then obviously the other thing was, okay, this is the first chance somebody else is going to be able to win a race except for Red Bull. And like, do you know what? Fair play to Carlos Sainz. I think Leclerc's that like the little poster boy for Ferrari, but the real driver probably in all of this is Carlos Sainz. I think he showcased his bottle a lot more in my eyes than Leclerc when it comes to being able to finish races and probably be like the number one driver at Ferrari, even though I still say Leclerc's probably the number one driver, but Carlos Sainz is showcasing he's got more about him. And like you said, the way he backed up Lando, and they were like, look, no point. And he goes, don't worry, I got this. I'm doing it on purpose. I'm doing it because then Hamilton can't get him and stuff. I'm doing all this on purpose. So he's probably got a bit more about him right now. And,
Well, just before we heap more praise on Sat, I just want to ask you a question about Leclerc quickly, because I remember, I don't know if it was last week, there was a thing about Nico Rosberg coming out to say Leclerc seemed too happy to not have finished on the podium, and he feels like, I don't know, maybe he's losing he didn't use the word losing his edge, but he said something about when So you see when they had that race in Bahrain with Mercedes and he finished second, he was like, "This is what F1 is." But he said it was fuming inside, but he maybe feels like Leclerc's not having that fight within going past his teammate. And then also, I remember seeing an interview back in the day when they asked Leclerc, "How would you give up if you're leading the race? Would you give the race up for your teammate to win a championship?" And he said that there is no way that will be in a title race, and I will be the one in a title race, something like that. Do you feel like Leclerc seems to losing his edge a bit, because he even seemed like happy finishing P4 when he was there for a podium?
I think it's
I don't think
because
that's the case.
you go.
No, I was saying I don't think it's the case. I think he's kind of got to a realization where Ferrari is at the moment and what he can actually achieve. So it's just him being content. And yes, you want to win, a title with Ferrari, but we do know that at some point there's other teams that are going to get better. And I wouldn't be surprised if Leclerc moves somewhere else and tries to do it there, because I think we've seen it with a lot of people. Seen it with Alonso, we've seen it with Vettel. You go to Ferrari, and generally you have like a 4 to 5 year window being the number one driver and trying to win. And if you don't win, you're just like, let me just move on, because Ferrari is one of those teams that they're similar to Red Bull. They've got a young driver program, and there's always a new young buck that's coming. Because Abbas will probably know this. Before Charles Leclerc, it was Jules Bianchi. RIP to him. He was meant to be the new guy coming up. So I just think he's probably getting to that stage in his mind, like, do you know what? I've kind of used my avenues at Ferrari. I'm going to accept it. And if my contract runs out, I can go and look at a Mercedes. I can look at an Aston Martin. You never know. He could go to a Red Bull. I doubt it, but there's going to be options there. I believe Porsche and Audi are coming to F1, not next season, I think the year after. So that could be an option. They're probably going to want a German driver and someone else. So there's going to be different avenues, but I just don't think he's content. I just think he realizes that this is where the land lays at Ferrari. And let me just do what I need to do now to get by, and I'll figure out what I do moving forward.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think it's just more of a case of, look, I've understood that, yeah, we're good. And sometimes we have a bit of good race pace at times. But the reality is that Red Bull's always going to be number one. Let's just see what we can do. If we can make a podium, excellent. If we finish fourth, but then in the constructors' title, we get the points to be able to push ourselves above where we need to be, we're happy with that. Because who's second now? Is it Mercedes?
Yeah, Mercedes second.
Aston Martin third, right?
Ferrari third.
Ferrari third?
It's Ferrari third.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, so as long as I think, because they understand, again, Red Bull's going to win the constructors. If they finish collectively second, that's a win for them right now.
Yeah. And then just more on Carlos Sainz, because I've seen a lot of people talk about how, like, ever since the summer break, he's taken his game to a new level. But I've been saying that I feel like even all season, to be fair, that I feel like he's consistently graduated. Do you feel like this is just good form, or do you feel like he's legit now?
He's not. So this is the thing about Carlos Sainz. I'll say this. I think similar to like how we just talked about Leclerc, where he was like the Ferrari poster boy guy, he seems like to be that ugly sister in the background that, look, I can scrub up a bit. Like, just don't put me to one side. Like, I can scrub up. I can be somebody out of a star. And I think he's coming out of his shell a bit now to put in some performances where people start, like you said, talking about him. And if this is the only race in the entire calendar where someone except for Red Bull wins it, it's going to be historic to a point, because he'll be the only name in the 2023 calendar that shows as a winner. So he's coming out probably showcasing that, look, I have still a bit about me. I'm not just a secondary driver. I'm not just a guy that's going to finish fifth in the driver's title and stuff like that. I've got something about me. And if he does finish over Leclerc in the title, in the driver's standing, sorry, that's an important thing for him. He's not going to do anything to jeopardize the team, but he'll go out for himself as well.
Okay, and I'm just switching over because obviously we had Mercedes and we had Hamilton on the podium as well. And as much as I'm going to give Carlos Sainz credit for that win, I said it yesterday that I feel like if Mercedes swapped the drive between Hamilton and Russell, that I feel like Hamilton would have gone on to win that race, because he just seemed much quicker when they switched onto the mediums. But obviously, I can say that because I'm just sitting in my room. Do you feel like Mercedes should have made that call knowing that if they saw the drivers around, it could potentially cost Russell a podium? Or do you feel like they made the right call keeping Russell to gun Norris down?
Yeah, I think they had to leave it as that because that would cause an issue within the team. And there was no way to say, "Oh, Lewis, if you don't overtake Norris, give the place back." Because at that time, I think it was only like 4 or 5 laps left, and it would have been unfair that, for example, if they did let Lewis go through and Lewis was able to go and win or get second, and then Norris was still third, it would just cause a little bit of an issue. This is something that the team should have seen before. Like they'd seen that Lewis's pace was faster. If they'd seen that from 10 laps left of the race, then should have made that switch there, and it'd been much more easier. It is a shame because similar to yourself, I do echo that. Like if Lewis was in that third position, he would have taken Norris because you could already see Norris's rear tires were moving mad. He would have overtaken him, and then the pressure for Sainz would have been like, "Shit, I've got a 7-time world champion behind me that isn't afraid to come and jerk inside or outside and try something different. And could he withstand that pressure?" Yeah. So it's a bit of a shame, but it's funny because the irony is that, you know what, George Russell was, pushing his tires, whatnot. There was a bit of pressure and the rear tires going, and he obviously crashed out. And if he had 20 at hindsight, he would have said, "Okay, cool, let me just let Lewis go, and then Lewis do his stuff, and I'm not really defending anyone," because there was a big gap between fourth and fifth at that time. But it is what it is.
I think if this was the Mercedes of old, where these guys were just routinely sitting on the podium and it wasn't a problem, then yeah, I think they probably would have said, "Look, George, switch up right now. We need." But because obviously they know for just the drivers themselves how much a value of a podium is, considering it's so difficult to get. And George did his thing. Like George didn't get that position handed to him at any particular point. He raced, he was down the strategy and stuff like that. So, and also again because of his qualifying being second, he earned the chance to try to overtake Lando and just try to finish where we could. So I think it would have been one of the things that it would have caused probably unnecessary friction in the team if they said to him, with like you said, 2-3 laps, right, switch up the tire. Your tires are going. We want Lewis to thingy, and then that's when see how we talk about Max. I mean, like, oh, there's favoritism. The favoritism talk would be mad right now. We wouldn't be having a conversation about Carlos Sainz, because if Russell had finished that race and they had made that switch, the first conversation would have been Mercedes still favor Lewis. Mercedes don't rate George Russell like that. That would have been the topic of conversation right now.
I want to ask another question, because you guys can tell me if this is something or nothing, because you said that if they sort the thing around, it will cause like issues within Mercedes. But do you guys think there's already issues within Mercedes? Because I saw a lot of people on social media talking about the way Mercedes reacted to Hamilton getting the podium, that there was nobody there to celebrate with him, whereas he was getting all the applause from McLaren and Ferrari. And it's not the first time that this has happened. Do you feel like there's something in that, or do you feel like it's nothing?
Nah, I don't think there is, because if there was any issues, he's just signed a new deal. He didn't have to sign that.
So that's what I was thinking as well.
I think he's calm. I didn't see the podiums or anything like that, but because he signed a deal with them for until I don't know how old he's going to be, 40, whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
So because he signed that deal with them, don't get me wrong, the money's good. Let's be real. Lewis is going to get paid for them years, but because he signed a deal with them, this guy doesn't have to race, and probably logically knows as well that competing for the title is going to be quite difficult. He signed the deal. I think they're going to be quite calm. But I think if they made that switch, then yes, then I would have looked at it to be like, yo, this is going to cause something in the next race type of thing.
Yeah.
And I look at it, still in that team, the hierarchy is still as it is. Hamilton is still the guy, but he's just knowing, okay, cool, this is how I need to deal with this situation when we're not winning. I don't want to come across looking like a spoilt brat. I just got to take everything that comes, whether I finish 10th, whether I retire early, I get a podium, just have that gratification and gratitude of like, I'm happy to be here, and hopefully next year I have a better car and I can become an 8-time world champion. So I think Lewis's mindset this year and last year has been very different from when he was in the best car on the grid. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think there's anything major. I think him and Toto have a great relationship. I think Lewis is only there because Toto signed on to stay for another 2 years as well. So I think once Toto goes, Hamilton goes, and then we'll see what happens with Mercedes.
The way him and Toto are is probably similar to Max and Christian Horner are. Like, I think
very.
Horner protects Max. Like, he will always make sure that, okay, Max's thingy. I'm not saying Toto protects Lewis, but he has that respect with him. Like, we know how great you are type of thing. Whereas someone else, if they ever came in and Lewis has another year left on his deal or whatever, they might just turn around and say, "Oh, Lewis, you're old. He's going to be number one. You're going to be number two. You help him grow." I think it's the same way there. I think if Christian Horner did ever leave Red Bull, which I doubt he ever would, and I think Max would probably, he'd still be favoured, I think, because he's just that much of a machine, but that relationship isn't there like it is right now.
Yeah, and obviously, just lastly on Mercedes, because I've seen a lot of people talk about how because there's always something in like whether it's football, basketball, there's something called pressure in it, in sports, in it, and you can see that it's always easier to do something when there is no pressure on you than when there is pressure. And I feel like yesterday is probably one of the most pressurized situations Mercedes has been in, because it was actually their real first opportunity to go for a race win, and Russell seemed to crash out and cost his team like 12 extra points or something. Is this something to look into as Russell as a driver in terms of, can he compete for a championship, or do you feel like this is just a mistake and he will bounce back from it?
I think it's like, I think when you say pressure, I hear it, but I think the pressure is because the person that was behind him was Lewis Hamilton. If it's Hamilton, Verstappen, or probably Alonso, that pressure's there. Anyone else, I don't think Russell's looking like, oh, Norris is behind me. He's like, do you know what? We came through GP2 together. We've come through karting. I can deal with him. Leclerc, I can deal with him. But guys that he knows that are willing to take a risk when they're behind you, that's when the pressure, comes to the forefront. So
exactly. But I get what you're saying. But the thing is that if Mercedes does ever get back to a point where they compete for a championship, those are the drivers he's going to be competing with. He's going to see them in front of him.
There's only one though. The only one is going to be Verstappen. But if he's in a better car, he might not have that pressure. But my point is, if you take Verstappen and Hamilton out of it, I don't think there's no one there that's got that drive in terms of how those guys are to overtake and be aggressive, for him to be worried that, oh, I've got Norris behind me, or I've got Sainz or Leclerc. I don't think he's going to be worried. But I think it's because of Hamilton. He knew Hamilton had pace, and he knows what Hamilton's mindset is. Like, if Hamilton sees one chance where I can overtake, I'm going to do it. And Hamilton's probably not even going to say, I'm going to move. You got to move. I'm going to flex my muscle. So I just think the pressure came because it was Hamilton, but also at that point of time as well, George's rear tires weren't that great either. So it's a combination of both.
Yeah, I kind of just agree with Sam. I think he's fine with how he is, because if he really deep it, George Russell, he had, I think last year, he had that streak where he was always finishing races. So it's not necessarily too much issue, but again, it's just what Sam said. You're on a street circuit where the corners are tight. There's not a lot of straights, and if there are, then they come and they go and they're really quick. So if your rears are also going, you look behind you, it's Lewis Hamilton, he's your teammate. You want to just, even though you're not going to say it, you want to just get that one up on him, especially when it's just you and him going for third position, and it just crashed out on him. But you can see by his reaction, he was thinking, I missed out on a huge opportunity. Because again, when it comes to these podiums, realistically, it should be both Red Bull guys on there and then somebody else. And then basically, if you look at it, you got 5 or 6 guys that can potentially be on a podium. So you missed that one opportunity. But just quickly, Alonso, I said this, bro. You look back on the tapes, I go, the second these Aston Martin days fall away, you're gonna hear the radio.
We both said that. Like, it's always. Alonso, he's like those guys that was all good about a week ago. Like, when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, you don't hear nothing. He's complaining. The car's not good. This is bad. Tires, strategy. But that's just a lot. Alonso, he's a big baby. He's a sore loser in it. Like, me and Abbas already said this. Cool. Let's see if he continues to do this after like week 10, where the Aston Martin is not performing. When he's performing, he's getting podiums. He's happy. He's like, yeah, I'm back with the big boys. Now you're finishing 5th, 6th, 8th, 10th. Now you're gonna start making noise.
Not in points, nothing.
Nothing.
I get what you mean.
He's going to fall off because they won't, like I said, the top 3 will be Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes, 100%. But also, it doesn't help that your teammates just stink.
Straw. Fuck it. But as I said, it's just one of those things, because I think he should even be more frustrated, because he did a lot of good work earlier in the season. I think he's even got 6 podiums this year, and even I'm just looking at the standings.
But it was just always constantly on the podium.
Yeah, and I'm even looking at the standards. He's got 170 points, while Lance Stroll only has 47, and Lance Stroll hasn't even been on the podium this year. So I feel like there's also a sense of frustration within the team. But as you know, there is no chance that Lance Stroll is getting replaced because of who owns the team or whatever. But at some point,
I do think at some point they might though, because you
yeah,
got to
they're gonna have
realize
to look at it. They're gonna have to
the
look at
brand
it.
as well. I know Lance Stroll's dad owns part of Aston Martin, but at some point you got a big brand like that. You want to have podiums and some wins. And yes, it might be my son, but if he isn't good enough and there's better drivers out there, for example, you can get a Carlos Sainz if his contract runs out with with Ferrari. You're gonna have to try and put someone better in that, because I don't think Lance Stroll's not great, man. Like, need to get rid of him, to be honest. But it is what it is. The game's the game, as we say.
And obviously, just lastly, because as we said, the reason we're able to enjoy this race the way we did is because Red Bull were struggling. Obviously, I'm not gonna say that they're dusted. I still feel like they still have the best car on the grid. But do you think Red Bull can go on and win the rest of the races, or do you feel like there's more races like this to come for the rest of the year?
There'll be some surprises. Don't get me wrong. But again, it'll be, even if, let's say, Max takes a grid penalty or anything of that nature, depending on the racetrack that he does it with, he can work his way up. I always say this: if he's at the back of the grid, brother, 60% of that grid doesn't care about him, to the point where they'll be like, okay, starting of the first lap, go get your way up, let us not kill our tires, type of thing. It was just because it's a street circuit that it's harder to pass. And then obviously the strategy there.
Liam Lawson was fighting him a bit yesterday, you know. Liam Lawson was fighting him a bit yesterday before Max eventually got him.
He will do that because he's on the sister team. So it's just that, you know what, let me flex a little bit out there, and it just looks cool for the cameras. But also, what happened with Red Bull was the strategy kind of messed them up with the safety car. So that kind of messed it up a little bit. But yeah, I think maybe they could lose 2 more races at max this year. But you'll see after this race, I think he'll win probably another 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah, I look at it as a circuit by circuit case, because at the end of the day, this is a street circuit, you know, especially in the street circuit, qualifying is important. Do you know what I mean? So I take that into consideration. And the rest, I don't think we're going to have any races that are similar to Singapore in terms of speed, corners, etc. So we'll just have to take that on a case by case basis. We know Red Bull always does good at the Mexico Grand Prix. They do good at Abu Dhabi, so that's already 2. You could have Austin, which they're usually generally good at as well.
They did well at Japan last year as well.
Exactly. Vegas will be good. That's a street circuit as well. So again, based on qualifying.
No one knows how that works unless you pick one.
But then what I'm saying in terms of, that's just going to be based on qualifying. Whoever qualifies well on that will probably determine how you finish, because it's another street circuit. So like I said, I think Red Bull will probably win maybe. They've got a shoe-in for probably 4 guaranteed races. And then I think there's how many left? What, 8? So 7, yeah? So cool. Yeah. So there's 3 that's up for grabs then.
Yeah. No, I hear what you mean. I said it will be interesting to see how, because it was just very bizarre. But then again, I think Max has never finished even in the podium at Singapore in his career anyway. So it looks like this is a circuit that him and Red Bull normally struggle on, regardless. Also, just quick side note: the FIA needs to start giving Red Bull the penalties, because
I don't know what happened.
What Perez was doing yesterday was criminal, and what Verstappen was doing in qualifying as well was criminal. And also for AlphaTauri, the sister team, to not have any representation in the what's it called, George room after as well, was criminal too. So I mean, everybody can see what's going on. But then again, it could just be me wanting more Red Bull downfall, so we can see more good racing. But it looks like that's all we do have time for today. Thank you, Sam and Abbas, for jumping on once again. As you can see, I'm going to put the social media platforms in the description below. And as we're roaming around, follow me or us on all social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at outofbounds_UK. And until next week, thank you for listening. Have a good evening. Bye.